Hey, my name is Kelly Starrett. I'm a doctor of physical therapy.
My name is Jesse Burdick. I'm a doctor of powerlifting.
Right, so what we're going to try to do today, we're going to try to show that the best mechanics, the best setup, the most safe, most effective positioning is the same language that you've been using with all your friends. Is that right?
Absolutely.
We're going to start with the deadlift today first. All of the mechanics from the top down, let's translate that into language. Right?
Yes.
So that when you come and train our beginners and our new athletes, or you're working with mini camps with our tactical athletes or advanced athletes,
correct,
it's the same language.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the language of strength and conditioning is the language of human movement.
Correct.
Right? So we're just going to try to simplify those variables.
And we dumb it down as much as we can because we're not doctors of physical therapy.
You're freaking me out.
It's weird.
But I'm a powerlifter first, bro.
Right, me too.
Okay, so how do we simplify movement?
It's efficiency in movement. We try and make it a single joint motion as much as we can. The strongest levers are moving the weight and the shortest range of motion that we can. And that's because we lift the most weight that way.
Check. I want to extrapolate all the kind of best practices from our strong athletes and try to translate it into something that means something to my mom or means something to me.
Right.
Now, when I look at movement mechanics, one of the things we're always trying to do is prioritize a braced, neutral, solid spine. And there's a lot of kind of misunderstanding about this. Right. So when I say I want to get into a good position, first thing I do is I squeeze my butt. That sets me in a good position. Mm-hmm. Then I brace my abs. Mm-hmm. And then once I'm squeezed, I take a big breath into that, and then I'm arching as hard as I can. Right. Is that different than what you guys do?
That's exactly the same thing. We just have different cues for it. That's just because we're different animals.
So let's take your setup position in the sumo. You'll notice that Jesse goes shins to bar. That keeps the leverage as close to his body as he can. He didn't just turn his feet out into sumo, that he screwed his feet into the ground. Can you do that again so we can see it? He screws his feet into the ground and he creates a solid, stable joint where he's creating a lot of external rotation, torque into that bottom. His feet don't go crazy wide, neither could they be perfectly straight here because he would end up flipping over on his ankle.
Right.
So when we're squatting, we say somewhere between 5 and 12 degrees, correct, but for a really wide sumo stance, it may come a little bit wider because I don't want you to break your ankle. Is that right?
Correct.
So weird that you would put yourself into the tight position.
And we found that out by figuring out that the flat part of our shin, the closer we get it to the bar, closer the bar is midline, the less we actually have to pull.
Check. Okay, so your setup starts here. Now, what do you do with your hands next? What you always do some kind of weird setup thing where you're like cultivating power. Is that right?
Yes, I'm just basically trying to find a good position, make sure my back is nice and tight, and then I'm set up from fingertips to toes, tight as I can.
All right, so go into your setup position. So what's happening here, and as if I poke Jesse in the butt carefully, because you don't want to poke the bear too often, but he's rock solid there. There's zero change, and now he's got the normal curves in his back. He has no change in his spinal position. Show me overextend for a second. Broken. And now you'll notice that his head position went along with his low back breaking. So head is straight and neutral. If the straight line down from the top of his head to the kind of base of his sacrum, he squeezed his butt and his abs are already set. So there's zero change in his position, and now he's loaded in a time and a place where there are very few loads and mechanical strains on the system, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now, do you take a breath at the top?
Yes.
So you take a breath at the top and then rip it off the ground? That's your...
Nope, I take a breath at the top, and then I go down and I just keep searching and building into the tension and building in the tightness.
Building tension, so it's like poltergeist, where you're like, go towards the light!
Bring it towards me.
But instead, you're going towards the tension.
Correct.
Okay, so now from this position, one of the sequences we talk about is this load ordering, that the sequencing matters. So my rule is, hey, we prioritize spinal position first, and then I need to load the big engine of the system.
Absolutely.
So what does that look like for you?
So just tension, everything's nice and tight, big air into the belt, and all we're gonna do is throw our hips back first.
So loading the hip, idea of if I move my quads first or move my knees forward first, that's what's gonna get loaded first.
Unravels.
Unravels, I like that. If I load the hips and hamstrings first, I'm gonna maximally load hips and hamstrings. Okay, yes. So you load hips and hamstrings back first. Now what are you doing? You're shoving your knees out. You're freaking me out there. What is this knee out? Because what I'm trying to attempt by screwing the feet into the ground is to create a stable hip joint through this torsion force.
It's a concept that I've come up with called external rotation.
Circle C, that just happened, right? So what's happening is that the concept of keeping the torso upright is accomplished through external rotation.
Correct. So I mean, you can only get to the bar a couple different ways. So what we're trying to do, and what we talk about, is watching everything from the side, is we're trying to squat or deadlift in as much of a phone booth, as much of a small area as we can. So in order to do that, if we bend our knees right away or stick our butt out right away, we start to create this big distance. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to screw, already having ourselves tension and tight, we're just throwing our knees out to activate the external hip rotators and start to descend that way and keep that line as close as we can. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to close up as much of the, and just express as much efficiency in movement, and also have the shortest straight lines as we can. We found out that going as wide as we can is going to help us express that a little bit.